there? Would you mind giving us an opening prayer, bud?
Yeah, no problem. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this morning, for thy blessings, and that we could gather together to talk about our case studies that we've read and to learn and grow from one another. Please help us so we can have the Spirit with us, that we can learn and choose the right, and that we can have a good rest of our day today. We ask and pray for these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen. Amen. So I don't know how much you guys have seen from the questions. I actually found it on my own this week, or what we need to actually go over. But I also looked at the questions we have to answer as a group and submit, and that involves a little bit more group work as well. It's not so much just someone taking it and answer it. So I think we should go over both forms and just try to get through it as best we can. And then that way we can at least know, even if we assign parts, we know exactly what we're looking for, then we can just complete the assignment that way. But I'm also open to ideas. So
cool.
I just talked about having like a spiritual thought at the beginning too. Just for me, me and Richard before everyone else was kind of joining on and stuff. It's we were talking about how long we've been going to school now. Richard's been going since the fall of 12. I've been going since the fall of 13, and we're both sounds like we're both getting to the end and winding down. And endurance isn't just about finishing at the end. It's also about what are you going to do when you get to the finish. There's more to do in life, or in the next life. And so it's not just that now you get your degree and you can rest. You may have more time to be able to do other things, but because of the knowledge you have, it's meant to fill that void of school towards good things now that you have this knowledge. So that's something I share with you guys. That's something that kind of hit me as I was registering for my final classes this coming fall. So, but I know the Lord will continue to bless us as we go out and try to do good and try to help each other to understand these assignments that I am trying to wrap my mind around. So, but this I say in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
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 Great thought.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. So did everybody get to read Brentwood and Jimmy?
Yes.
Yes.
Did anybody struggle with the mathematics behind the homework?
Yeah, I was way confused. I sent a message last night on the thing to see if anyone could figure it out, and everyone seemed to be confused.
Yeah.
Just saw that to the Sally.
Well, was it Andrew? You kind of have an echo.
What did you say?
We were just asking if anybody else struggled with the homework, with the mathematics behind it.
I think it could have been pretty simple or not. I definitely struggled with it. But then what I put for my answer is I just multiplied. So it said that IPOs generally get 21 times the EBI TDA. And so I multiplied 21 times the adjusted EBI TDA for whichever case study we were on. So that's what I did.
For Brentwood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know it was that simple.
I have no idea if that's right.
Right. Yeah, that's
isn't.
I have my own calculations too. I have no idea if they're right, and I'm trying to remember how I came up with them. I have to look it up. Other assignments.
If that's all it is, let's say in general, if that's all we do is 21 times EBI TDA, is that still 15% lower than what the actual value of the company is? Did you guys remember reading that? That like when underwriters come up with the value of the company for their IPO, it's in general the rule of thumb, and most of them are discounted at 50% lower. All right, if you guys don't know, that's fine. I don't know.
I don't.
I have no idea.
Of the company. I mean, I read in the case, and there was like 7 different methods, and they were all like too much for me.
Yeah, it was a little bit much, and I was like Andrew. I just kind of try to put pieces together on what I understood and comprehended with my limited sleep, and I just came up with the numbers I did.
Yeah.
So what did everybody come up with the IPO for now? I mean, what kind of valuation did anybody have? What kind of numbers did anybody come up with? I'm trying to remember how I calculated it, but I got basically 127 million as a change. I'm not sure. I don't know if that'd be correct.
Let me check what I got. Because was there somewhere that said how much the company is valued at right now?
No,
Or
I
is
think
that
you got to calculate that too, I believe.
Yeah, we had to determine the value, and
Yeah.
it gave us. We had the financials at the very back.
Yeah.
We had revenues.
Okay.
We had adjusted EBI, TDA, and then net income, but we didn't have values. I think that's a lot of what the deductive reasoning is, and a lot of this is like determining how you value a company.
Yeah.
And I know in a lot of, like in that one article on the initial public offerings, there was a lot of info in there. On page 9 of that article, initial public offerings, it was talking about the kind of the formulas of how you figure out share price, equity value, things like that. It's still a little confusing to me, but and the one thing I really got out of that is that very rarely do they actually value a company. They usually end up undervaluing a company at its IPO. But there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into that than I ever really realized about all the stuff leading up to the actual initial public offering, and then after, and then how, like, you know, a lot of the culture of a company can change a lot because of the responsibility that you have as a publicly owned company.
Right.
Well, for my calculations, like I said, so I multiplied the 21 times the 2012 EBITDA, and so I came out with a $229 million IPO. So that was my number.
Okay.
It sounds pretty high, but
Yeah, and I thought mine might have been high, but you're right at almost a million, 100 million higher than me. And
yeah.
you might be spot on too. I honestly do not know.
Because what kind of calculations did you guys do? Because I thought about it for a while, and what it said was something. It said in the case study. Let me get it real fast. That an average current valuation of 21 times trailing EBITDA for publicly traded fast-growing restaurant companies. And I couldn't find trailing EBITDA, and so I just used the adjusted from exhibit. I don't know which one that is, like 5, I think. Exhibit 7. And so, yeah, I just multiplied by 21. What did you guys do? Dalen, what did your around there?
That's what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find my notes from it.
Because
What I
it
did.
always seems simple, and that's what scares me.
Well, just to make it a little interesting, I got a little curious and I did some Googling and actually found an article from Reuters back in April of 2014 that Zoe's Kitchen was priced they priced their initial public offering at $15 a share, valuing the Mediterranean style restaurant chain at about $276 million. They raised $87.5 million from the offering after its initial public offering of 5.83 million shares of common stock was priced at the upper end of the expected price range. The company earlier this week expected the IPO to be priced between $13 to $15 per share. Birmingham, Alabama-based Zoe's Kitchen is selling all the shares in the offering. Anyway, I just was curious if there was anything actually out there about it. It said the company is backed by private equity firm Brentwood Associates, which owns about 71%. Brent's stake would drop to about 46% after the offering, the company said in its filing.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, because that comes out about. Oh, hey guys, sorry I'm late. my computer was so slow, but yeah, I did the same thing that you did, Andrew. Just because that's the only thing that I could find on there that even made sense to me was just timesing it by the 21, kind of like the what was it, Yard House or whatever that Darden Restaurants bought.
Yeah.
That was valued at 21. So that's what I did. So that's kind of interesting that came back pretty close. Because Richard, what did you say it was? Or it was 20 valued at 240?
76 million.
76 million.
What was your number, Garrett?
I had 220 million. But I did it 20 times the EBI to TDA. And I based it off like 11 million from August. That was in the case.
Yeah, that's right around where I am. Okay, interesting. Sally, what did you do?
Richard, how much did you say you raised from the IPO?
Nothing. Literally could not.
At the actual IPO, it was valued at $276 million.
Wow. But is that how much cash they raised, or?
No, it said they were valued at that, and then it just said they raised. Hold on. They raised $87.5 million from the offering after its initial public offering of 5.83 million shares.
So there was on exhibit 1. Exhibit 1 of the case, it's like page 11. It has all the other restaurants and like what they were valued at and their offer price and how much they raised.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just looked at that and I knew they were comparing themselves to, what was it? Noodles and Company, that was like the 300 million in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And they did like, they were forecasting to do maybe about half that this good year they were about to have. And so I looked at how much they raised, because that was one of the theories of how to like figure IPOs was to compare it to other companies. And their gross IPO proceeds for Noodles and Company was 96 million. Is how much they were able to raise after their valuation. And so I forecasted them to raise after their valuation 90 million. So it was actually pretty close, because you said like 88 or 87 million.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then I figured their value to be somewhere around 200 million. But I was just guessing based off of what the other competitors were valued at and like how much they were doing in revenue, how much this company thought they were going to be doing. So that was my guess.
Good guess.
You're not coming through again, Andrew, or I can at least understand.
Yeah, you were. I'm not understanding you at all.
I'm trying to think of what it sounds like, what he's talking through, and I can't picture it.
It's like like he's got a bad internet connection or something. Like the bandwidth is low or something.
Yeah, it sounds hollow and kind of echoed.
Sorry, is that a little bit better? Not really.
Not really.
All right. Just go on. I'll listen. And
I can actually hear you clear now. Now you're clear.
What I said earlier was that we spent a bit of time on for that.
Yeah, we lost you again, Andrew. All right, so I think we'll continue on, and hopefully Andrew will be able to find his voice again. So as far as what we know right now, the numbers. So all of us seem to kind of agree, definitely up in the upper 200 millions. Do you think it'd be good to sell to a strategic buyer, to a financial buyer, wait and grow the business until it's more valuable before exiting? What would you guys do with the business, or what was your kind of contemplation on it?
Well, I kind of thought I'm kind of conservative, and I kind of thought that they should wait and grow the business until it's more valuable before they exit. That was my initial thinking. But like I said, I take a more conservative approach to stuff. I'm a little risk averse.
Yeah, for the prep, I couldn't figure out like the numbers. I'm not sure if they're right or not, but I also said that they should wait and take conservative way before they exit until they're more valuable. And I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking that the exact opposite. Actually, I was thinking they should do an IPO. You know, go public. I know the reading too said that going public, you know, could end up making or breaking them, but they have a strong foundation. They're well liked. They have good people work for them, so it's a good culture. Plus, they're obviously very popular consumer, and the profits have gone with it. So for me, for me personally, I am more of the guaranteed money kind of thing. I think I would have gone IPO to exit out now, but also maybe like what they did research that you did, Rick, they still kept 46% of the shares. You know, maybe still keep a piece of the pie, but you know, have that guaranteed come in. But it's also going to benefit other people who want stock for the public, and it's going to boost their personal situations too by being a part of that.
I was actually voting against growing, and my reasoning why was once you go public, all your financial data and all your strategies are now publicly known. You have to register with the SEC, and I feel like that's kind of a disadvantage when you're a new entrant kind of company coming in with these incumbents like Noodle and Company and all these other restaurants that have launched successfully and are already in the market. Now you're revealing your marketing strategies, you're revealing all your strategies, you're revealing all your data, all your financials for them to know. And currently their financials, after looking at them, I don't think they were super solid yet. They had a lot of growth kind of happening, but they're not super solid yet. And if they waited a little longer until they get to the point that they're too big for their competitors to really push them out of the market or start competing against them, I think that'd be a better strategy. So hold off. One, for privacy. The other reason I would hold off is once you go public, now you have investors to please, and that they're all about short-term returns. So how can I get my return on investment with you? How do I want your stock price to increase? To make stock prices increase is super easy. All you got to do is sell assets, and your stock price will increase because your return on asset will increase. It's not a long-term strategy, but any accountant, any CFO can make a stock price increase with short-term strategies that can have bad effects on long-term strategies. And it's hard when you have Wall Street and all these investors pressuring on you. We need this return, and so you'll lose some of your long-term focus on what's really good for the company and start thinking, well, how do we get our stock price to increase for the investors? So I'm kind of thinking, let's hold off until we get more established. Till we do some of our long-term strategies so they're in place, so our culture is fully established and our priorities are established and our financials are established for our competitors not to even try to mess with us. And then let's go public.
Gotcha. Yeah, all those points. Good points. Now it says number 2, as a group, allow each individual to say his or her piece on the outset. Take a counter position and explore those other options. So why does Brentwood want to exit now? Well, I mean, Brentwood in the reading talked about how they want to, help fund the company, build it up, have it become, solid. Like you mentioned, Daylan, maybe not quite solid enough on their own yet, and maybe Brentwood thinks they're at that level. I don't know. I don't know fully what their mentality is behind it, but I think that that's what they're thinking, and I think that's why I got my interpretation the way I did. Anybody else want to know or have an opinion as to why they're maybe going now?
Well, I just think kind of like what you said, kind of the guaranteed money and get a return on your investment. And so I think just kind of like what you were saying, that's, they have established it somewhat. They could get a return. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of work, kind of like what they were saying, because everything has to go public. You have to file a bunch of stuff. But, at that point, they felt like they just kind of wanted to go for it.
I think that another reason why he was considering it was because when banks contacting them, trying to figure out if they wanted to go public. So I feel like he was just really felt like the pressure to consider it. And then they also saw some benefits if they went public, because it would increase credibility with their customers, and it would make it easier to retain their employers, because then they would be able to see the financials and see that they were doing pretty well. That's what I got from it when I read it.
When I think, at the very beginning of the case, it was just talking about how, one of the reasons for wanting to get out was obviously pushing toward an IPO, because if they could get them to have a successful IPO, then it would make Brentwood, it would make their credibility go up in the eyes of their investors, and it would help them have a better track record. Because I think they'd only had one other company that they'd had an IPO with, and so for them it was going to help their reputation. It was going to help them attract more investors and kind of raise their credibility in the venture capital, industry or whatever. So that would be a good reason for them to get out now, and especially if they can get a successful IPO, is that it's going to fare well for them as well.
So did anybody think about the public selling it, or not public, like a private buyer?
I know it talked about it in the case, but I didn't really touch on it too much. What were your thoughts on that?
I guess, I don't know. I was just thinking what happened to the Yard House, that example, like I was saying earlier and what Andrew was saying, they valued it, 20 times the IBTD or whatever. And it just seemed to me like it was just a lot more simple. If they could get an offering from some of those places like Darden, which owns a lot of your Olive Garden, places like that, and still make a good chunk of money, it would have been $220 million without having to, I guess, risk it by like Dalen said, putting all your financials out there, filing all the paperwork, having that huge risk that it'll become undervalued, and then kind of not raise that attention and stuff like that. Then I don't know. I thought that seemed like it could be a good alternative. But also I think it is risky, because you never know how much attention you're going to get from those bigger companies, or, who's going to want to buy it. But to me, it seemed like it was a lot less stressful and quite a, if you could still get the same amount of money out of it without having to jump through all those hoops.
Yeah. And I think they touched on that too. I'm looking at the case on page 9, and it said the main drawback of a private sale was that valuations tended to be lower in the private markets compared to the public markets. So that might have been one discouraging point. But there sure is a lot. It's an easier process, and there's a lot less hurdles to overcome going that route.
Well, and maybe it's just me in my simple little world where, you know, I'm paycheck to paycheck, but, you know, buying selling something for 300 million versus something maybe valued a little bit lower at 275 million. I'm not going to fight for that other 25. I'm just saying. I mean, that might just be me, but, you know, on a personal level, yeah, I don't know how that works in the business world. I know you want to try to get as much as possible, but I don't know at what point you just got to find that you know, that utility of what is enough, what do you think would be fair, and then walk away with the deal. It also depends, you know, like Dalen's brought up though too, you know, you got to look at long term as well though. You got to look at long term.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some reasons? I think we already touched upon that pretty good, especially Dalen, for the reasons to hold on now. So the next question is now, what can go right under each of those circumstances, whether we exit now or hold on, and what could go wrong under each one?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So touching on some of those things that can go right for waiting, at least, I didn't notice any. The main downfall that I noticed for waiting was it could miss this hot season, this hot IPO season that they're currently in. It may not last that long. So I said to wait and gain a little bit more before continuing with an IPO. And I think through waiting, there's a lot of most everything can go right. All the benefits of doing it now will still potentially be there, even if they wait. And so I don't see much downside to waiting for that IPO. Yeah, they'll get some extra cash now, but it sounds like they're growing, they're doing well, and I think waiting is the best option. So that's as far as what I think would go right under the waiting scenario. And what would go wrong, they may miss this hot season now, but it maybe get a little bad because they've started to ask about an IPO, and some companies, you know, may not like that they're about backed out on, but still is the way.
Yeah, bad thing is, Andrew, we lost you on that second question when you were saying what can go wrong.
I didn't think there was much that could go wrong. Mainly see all the benefits for doing an IPO now. They'll see those benefits in a few years waiting, and so the only downfall is they may miss this hot season, but there always be another hot season as well.
Yeah, I was have to say my thoughts are the same as far as exiting now. The good thing, I didn't think about the future. I didn't have the future in mind as far as it continuing to grow and to stay in the game. To me, I also kind of look at it as, I mean, even though the trend is going in the right direction, it's kind of like the stock market too. You know, like at some point, there's also going to be some give where it's going to be a down season. And so to me, I was thinking about the reason why I would say, you know, do an IPO or at least get out now would be for, you know, at some point it's going to drop. When is that at? So that's, I was kind of looking at more like a stock market situation and not necessarily just focusing on the trend. So you guys brought up some very valid points on why wait, why hold on, why continue to go on the path you're going. What can go wrong though for? Oh no, we just discussed that. Now, under each exit option, I didn't get all these answers, so I don't know what you guys got, but how much do you think Zoe's was worth under each exit option?
Well, we kind of figured out, and it even talked about it in the case that most IPOs, that the businesses were valued at 21 times EBITDA. So if you look at page 9 on the case, It said a sample of restaurant M&A transactions completed in the past 3 years. The average multiples paid by financial sponsors and strategic investors were 8 times and 13 times respectively. This compared to an average current valuation of 21 times trailing EBI TDA for publicly traded fast-growing restaurant companies. So it sounds like in the private sector, they're going to be like valued at 8 to 13 times EBI TDA and 21 times EBI TDA in publicly traded.
That's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't get this one. I'm not sure.
Hey, Richard,
Yes.
where's that at? Help me out. Where on
Okay,
page
if you go on the Brentwood Associates exiting Zoe's Kitchen, the page 9.
Okay.
Page 9, under the heading where it says sale to a financial sponsor or strategic buyer.
Yeah, it's the final paragraph on the page.
It's on the last paragraph of page 9.
Financial sponsors 8 times.
8 to 13 times, respectively.
8 is for financial sponsors, and strategic investors is something else. The financial sponsors get 8 times. Strategic investors do more than financial sponsors. They'll do 13 times.
Right.
And CEOs will do 21.
Correct.
And they're on track with their earnings to be at 11 million. So for financial sponsors, it'd be at 88 million valued. For strategic, you'd be right at 143 million. And then the one that we already know, because Andrew already told us, 231 for IPO. Cool. I think that's one of the questions on our group thing.
Our group assignment, let's see.
Yeah, it's under number 3.
I'm working on it. I'm trying to put some stuff in there.
Awesome.
Let me get back to my original question. Now, obviously, the difference in the selling price or the overall valuation is big. I mean, we're talking 100,000 or 100 million just on the top 2, strategic versus compared to the average current valuation of an EBI TDA. So that's huge. That's a lot. Now, why would somebody want to sell to a financial buyer instead of an IPO?
Well, one reason would be it was a quicker process. There was less cost involved. It said the sale could be completed in less than 3 months. It would not require as much management time and attention as an IPO. The direct cost of the seller would also be much smaller than an IPO option, consisting primarily of a fee to an investment bank for running the sale process, typically 1.5% of the gross purchase price, and a fee to legal counsel for negotiating and reviewing the sale documents. And then it said in a private sale, the probability of a successful outcome would be far less dependent on the unpredictable performance of the public equity markets. It also provided a greater certainty on exit returns by allowing Brentwood to exit its entire stake at once, something that rarely happened in an IPO, so they could completely get out of it going that route.
Well, not just get out of it, but it sounds like be paid upfront with cash for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Not with some kind of usual typical payment option for X amount of years.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds like basically just more kind of like when somebody wins the lottery. They can either do the payout or they can do the payments.
Right, like over an annuity or like all at once.
Exactly. Anybody else have anything else to add to a financial buyer versus an IPO? Awesome. I think we'll jump on the Jim Sharp case.
Okay.
Awesome. Now we're to assess this venture from Jim Sharp's perspective. So we're supposed to act as if we're Jim Sharp himself. How has Jim Sharp purchased this venture? What are the implications of this financial structure?
Well, he's leveraged. I mean, he's got a ton of debt. It's pretty much debt that he's taken it on with, and so it's his risk is. I mean, it already said he's risked. I mean, he's got everything. His house and all of his personal finances are at risk, and so he's leveraged to the max.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if it was the greatest of ideas to do this.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of pressure, right? I mean, like he's got to turn the company around. I mean, he's got to get it in a very profitable position very quickly. And I think that the things that kind of stood out to me on this is in the initial process, he wasn't allowed to talk to any of the employees or anything like that. And then when the way that it was announced to the employees is the old owner said, "Here's the new owner, I'm out, see ya." And everybody was like shocked, And so I think that there's that added pressure of, wanting to make sure that people know that you want to get to know them, you want to get to know the company culture, that you're. So I think that he's got a lot of challenges that he's facing, and as well as the amount of debt that he's faced with it right out of the gate.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think there's more to it than just on the surface with these case studies. There's a lot of focus on the finances behind it and timing and decisions to make. Regarding each of these in relation to each other. But then, like you mentioned too, the culture. I mean, I have no idea honestly how to read the end of that. The way the owner left leads me to believe that he would not have been a very liked guy. Mm-hmm. So, he may not have really cared for his employees, and so two things would either cross my mind: either they're going to be grateful that this guy came in like a savior, or this guy came in and great, we got another one just like him, and he's younger because he's only in his 30s, and here we are now. We're going to get a younger one. He's going to be here forever, and he's going to be a tyrant like the last guy.
Yep.
I think kind of what's going on as I read through, he would get so devastated every time that he wouldn't get a deal to go through to buy a company. And we got a little bit of insight into his life. Yes, like Richard said, everything's at risk for him. His house, his wife's about to have a baby, their first child, and he's got this pressure probably coming from home too, that his wife goes, "Well, you were making all this money working for these big companies, and you were working for Harvard, or you went to school at Harvard, and we should be making a lot of money. Have you bought a company yet?" "No, I'm still looking." "Oh, okay, well, you need to buy one, and start providing for us again. How long can we live here, not owning anything?" And he's like, "Okay." And he kept trying, and he would get so devastated. He said it was the most devastating process to have to, come up with a proposition, figure out how to fix the company, propose it, and then the deal wouldn't go through. And he said he would just fall apart. And I think that's clouded his mind a little bit. There's red flags that we're seeing in this company. Don't talk to the employees. Don't talk to the customers. You can't talk to anybody. You just can come and tour and talk to me. Oh, what are the margins and the profit margins for our suppliers and the relationships we have with them? They're better than they look because my dad takes a lot of money out of the company. There's like these tons of red flags. And I think his emotions were clouding his judgment when he decided to buy it.
I agree. I agree, especially being as young as he is, and there's young people out there that are sharp. I'm not one of them, but I think there's young people who could go out there and be successful at something like this. But he had something guaranteed. It's fine if he has a fire and he wants to start his own business or at least own one. But yeah, I mean, just with all those red flags you mentioned, those were the things too that really bothered me and made me uneasy about the case.
Yeah, I think other red flags afterwards when he purchased the company was that the building that they were all working in were like was in like really bad conditions. And then I think the dad was in the payroll too, and then they had hidden cars. And yeah, the owner just took a lot of money company, so like the financials weren't up to date. I don't know. I don't think it was a good decision after all, but because then he's gonna have to invest in like remodeling and then he has to like set the tone for like the employers, and there's a lot of things he needs to consider.
Yeah, I mean, where's he going to get that money from if everything else is already gone?
Right. Sorry guys, I'm not feeling really well today. That's why I'm like kind of quiet.
No problem.
What question are we talking about? Is this still the second one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you went through a pretty long process to get to that point. Well, purchase it. I can answer the second half of that question. What are the implications of this financial structure? I don't know, it took a little while for me to understand. But what I ended up saying was about how there were many things in the company that need to be a little bit more efficient. It sounded like they weren't the most efficient in a lot of things in this company that he was purchasing. The receivables looked really good as far as collections go, and there was also a good amount of inventory from what it seemed, but also getting that efficiency so they're not, buying too much inventory before they actually need it and things like that. I think that's one of the things that Sharp will have to focus on.
I can't imagine being Jim Sharp though at the end of this and saying, like point number three, what should he do on his first day? I mean, how does he address the people? He may have come up with these great plans to say, hey, I have this idea on turning around the plant and being able to do different things and making it big and successful again. But I mean, he's also got to be able to address his people. He didn't address that at all in the reading.
No, that makes a really good point. I think that because I read a couple of articles just kind of on like when you buy a company kind of during that transition period, and one of the biggest things that was kind of common across all the articles I came across was the importance of getting to know the people, getting to know like being very transparent and very open in your communication with the existing members of the staff. And really let them know that you're interested in getting to know them and the company. And they all talk about too the importance of studying the culture and planning changes carefully. And I don't know if any of you have read, or in one of my classes, I had to read the book. It's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Yeah.
And I loved that book. I thought it was great. I've shared it with my managers at work, and I just really liked how when she came in, in her management role, that she just observed for the first couple of weeks and before she jumped in and started making changes. And I think that's really important because, he can focus on increasing profitability, but I think if he can get the morale and that culture where he's got that internal approval of his employees, it's gonna kind of spill over into how the customers are getting treated, how on time the deliveries are going to be. Like, I think it's just that whole change of the corporate culture that's going to also have a big impact on how much they're going to be able to sell and how much they're going to be able to really affect the financial bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, the employees will definitely have an impact on it. I mean, you'll be able to buy into his philosophy, and hopefully his philosophy will work.
I really like that comment, Richard, and that ability to come in and just. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I think you're the only one talking. Galen, you want to finish your thought? So with number 4,
Wait,
what?
sorry, what?
We were asking Dalen. Dalen started to talk, and I think maybe he thought he was interrupting somebody, and he stopped talking. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I really liked what Richard about coming in and first observing what's going on and deciding what the culture needs to be. I remember on my mission when we got a new mission president, I was actually almost annoyed that in the first several meetings, he didn't say a single word, and he didn't do anything or say anything. He just sat there and he took some notes and he just watched, and it actually kind of unnerved. It's like, why is he not doing anything? And after several months, all of a sudden he began to teach and create a new culture for the mission. And he was the most powerful leader I've probably ever met in my life. But for the first few months, you would have no idea. He sat there quietly taking notes.
I don't know, Dylan. I think we lost you.
I think he's maybe having some microphone issues.
Yeah, that's how my second mission president was too. He was that way. He was a pulpit pounder, man. He was amazing. And number 4, what should his action plan be for the next 6 months, 12 months, and what should be his priorities? I think we've just discussed that. I mean, it's getting to know his employees. I mean, he has to understand the finances behind it and stuff too, but he's got to understand the entire operation of the company, from the most newest entry-level position all the way up to. He doesn't need to know how to do it. He just needs to know what their role is and how it plays into the big picture. All the way up to whatever his role is, whatever he wants to call himself, owner, CEO, whatever.
Yeah, I agree with you guys as well. That's exactly what I put on mine. I said for the first day, he should do personal interviews with each employee, really get to know them as individuals, show an interest in their lives. And then for the next 6 months, continue to do that while doing more interviews with the employees, but then talking to them about what could go better for the company and get a whole SWOT analysis of that company in the first 6 months. And then the 12-month goal, I think, would be to start to try and get some growth and implement some new rules into the company that result in more efficiency and things like that. Priorities for Jim are to have as much as an understanding as possible about his company and the employees. And I think that's kind of his 6-month, 12-month plan.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan too. To understand the way the business, a how the business is running, and then B how it needs to change one thing at a time to become what it needs to be.
I pretty much have the same concept of what I said. He should do. I don't know. I also said that within the 6 months he should gather the employees and the team and kind of explain to them what his expectations are and go over the company culture and stuff like that.
Now, who thinks that Jim made the right acquisition though?
I wouldn't have done it if it was me.
No, I wouldn't have either.
Mm-mm.
I wouldn't have either.
Hey, I'm on the document. I'm answering that question, number 1. So give me your thoughts again too on what his action plan should be for the next 6 months, 12 months. Priority should be, I've got one of the most important things he needs to do is to study the culture and get to know the employees. He needs to let them know he's interested in getting to know them. What else did we say?
I think he has to understand too the equipment, the structure. What is the integrity of them? What's the lifetime? Do they have warranties? I mean, there's so much more behind just the morale of the people too. Maybe some of the morale, if the morale is down, maybe that's partly due to inadequate machinery. Things breaking down, people can't complete their jobs, or things are delayed. I'm just like everybody else, where I like things to be nice and smooth, and run smoothly. And at work, they hardly ever do that, and that's just the nature of it. But as long as I got the resources and the tools to be able to make it run as smoothly as it can, then that's going to help build my morale up or keep it up. So I think he needs to, look at the equipment as well, see what he has.
Yeah, and on that same note, I think if I was him, I would start looking at, obviously their financials were a little, I don't know, sketchy, you could say, because of like the cars and the dad and whatnot. And he was saying that he would look at different contracts. I think there was an example of like a machine that hadn't been used in years and they never used it, but yet they still got it serviced and they paid for this contract to do that. And so I'd start looking at those little things and ways to cut those expenses as well.
Okay, so he needs to do a complete audit of the existing processes and practices. Okay.
Yeah, I think the majority of these questions have been answered.
Yeah, I was just writing them in the document. So I guess my thinking in my head was like, if as much as we can get done together as a group, then there's less we have to do later. That's just the way my week has gone. I'm like, I don't want anything at the last minute.
Oh yeah. And like Garrett last week, I have scout camp coming up this next week for me, so I'm trying to hammer out this weekend, next week's homework as much as possible.
Yep.
That way, if I can't join in on the call, which I highly doubt in the amount that we have to do, I can at least send notes, this weekend or something, hopefully, to be able to say, hey, this is where I'm at with it. These are my thoughts. That way, I can still somewhat participate.
Yep. So I think 1 is answered. I got 5 answered. So we just have 2 on the document and 4. 2 and 4 is all we have to have answered on the document, and then we're like actually completely done, unless somebody has further thoughts that they want to add. So if we want to go through and answer those, and if you guys want to fire away, I'll write it up if you want me to. So I'm on the document.
Well, I think Dalen brought up a lot of really good points as far as Jim was concerned. There are a lot of red flags, and I think that's probably how the note should be titled. His, him being devastated, the psyche behind it. Potentially his wife. Who knows how supportive she was in it? I imagine she was supportive, but she may have been that type where it's like, okay, it's running out of time, and that's always hard when there's that kind of pressure on the family for you to be able to provide.
I agree. Having a baby is stressful enough without anything else, and mama's in her nesting stage, and having that in the back of her mind of maybe there's some insecurity of job security that can add some stress.
Well, she was still working up to this point too.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he couldn't talk to any of the employees, he really had almost no inside information. It was very, very limited for him to be able to say, you know what, this place is the place for me. I don't even know how he came up with an action plan to be able to try to turn this thing around. I don't know where he would have gotten his information from.
Mm-hmm.
That'd have been like me trying to solve this week's equations. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's nice to know I wasn't on the ship alone.
Oh, hey, I think we're all on the ship. I just don't know who's steering.
Right.
I'm typing right now, kind of answering some part of number 2.
Okay.
What we discussed just before.
Which one do we have left to answer?
We have number 4.
I think.
So what differences did you observe in the valuations based on who buys the company? And does this make any sense and to discuss as a group?
I'm guessing because the previous question is talking about Zoe's worth they're talking about Zoe. Looks like it just it's there.
Yeah.
Well, I think we discussed that when Richard, when you brought up the whole like 8, 13, and 21 percentages.
Yeah. Let's see here. So let's see here. So what were our thoughts on EBITDA? So I put on here, financial sponsors usually paid 8 times EBITDA for a company. Strategic investors usually valued a company at 13 times EBITDA, and an IPO usually valued a company at 21 times EBITDA. So does this make any sense? I mean, so they're asking us, I mean, does it make sense why there's the big value difference? Anybody have thoughts on that?
No, I think that's what makes total sense. I think that let me see here. Where's what else? Waiting for my mouse to catch up.
One thought I have, Richard, and I mentioned this. Oh,
go ahead.
I mentioned this before, but like going through the strategic investor or the financial investor, you get to retain some greater ownership equity as well as strategic planning more than you do going public. That, and you have more privacy with your financials. It's just between you and that investor. It's not public knowledge that, oh, we're carrying this much debt, or we have this much net income, or these are our margins and this is our price structure. That's not public knowledge when you go through one of these other avenues. And so that's kind of a competitive advantage. If your competitors don't know how you are doing or what your strategies are, that works in your favor. So yeah, you get a lower valuation, but you have some competitive gain there that might be beneficial. So.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if it made any sense. I don't know if are you guys all on the document?
Yeah.
So does that make sense? What I just typed on number 4, does it make any sense? Or if you guys can expand on that or make it sound better, that's awesome.
13 and Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think so too.
So Kelly, are you submitting our document this week in our meeting link and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll submit the document and I'll submit the link as well. Yes.
Okay. So then who's going to take lead next week? Is it my turn to do it next week? Have we made
I
a full
have.
through all of us?
I haven't done it technically yet. So I can do it next week.
So you'll do the hangout next week?
Yeah, I'll make sure to do it right this time.
As a on air hangout on air.
I'll record it. I thought I was just in an invite. And yeah.
That's okay. We're all in this together. Okay. So do we have anything else we need to talk about, guys, tonight, or did we kind of hit everything?
I think the paper looks really good.
Awesome. Hey.
Yeah, I don't know. I think me and Andrew added some stuff to like number 2. I don't know if you guys want to. I don't know. What do you guys think about that, or should we expand more on that?
On which numbers?
Number 2, if Jim make the right decision and why.
Oh yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait. That's
Yeah,
still
no.
so bizarre. You can't
Well-
talk to any of my people. What? That's so bizarre.
I know. That was like shooting off red flags for me because it was like, whoa, that doesn't sound good. Because sometimes you hear about those companies where the company takes over and then nobody really knows what's going on, and then like the new company comes in. So everybody goes home for the weekend on Friday afternoon thinking everything is hunky-dory, and then they come in on Monday to find out that the company's been sold and the new owners are there with their own staff, and half the people get canned on Monday morning when they go to work.
Yep.
So I wouldn't recommend doing that, but it does happen. But I just don't think he knows what he's getting himself into, and I wouldn't jump if I were him. I would keep looking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have started putting out applications too.
I know.
So, all right. Well, I mean,
Cool.
if everything thinks the doc is good, I mean, I can even submit it tonight, and we can just be done with it and wash our hands.
That sounds good to me.
Sounds great. It's been a hard week for me.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so we'll see you all next week, except for Kelly, and he's going to be in the mountains. Be safe. Have a good time.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is kind of like a month away, just a heads up. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to meet the 4th of July week because I'm going to be driving to California for an event. So, but I'll let you guys know when we get to it.
Okay.
But just a heads up.
Okay. Because we meet on the 5th, right? The 5th is...
Yeah, like Thursday.
Okay.
But yeah, I have my graduation party going on that weekend. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so you guys, I'm graduating this semester, so by then, if my grade's good enough, I'm just not going to show up anymore.
I'm thinking the same thing.
No,
Wow.
So how many of you guys are done after this semester then?
I think it's called Endure to the End.
This is my
Right?
last semester.
You're joking.
I
Mostly.
Yeah,
graduate.
this is my last class as well.
Wow, that's awesome.
Good for you.
I graduate in April. When does everybody else graduate? So is it Dalen and
Garrett and Sally, right?
Yeah.
you all graduate like in July?
Yeah, I mean July.
Yay! Congratulations, you guys. That's awesome.
Thanks.
And Andrew, what about you, man?
I graduate in December. I got to do IBC in the fall, and then I graduate.
Nice.
I hated ABC. Good luck.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you guys next week then.
Okay.
All right. You guys.
Have a good night, everybody.
See ya.
Okay, take care.